There are moments in life when you meet someone and without any clear intention, something inside them quietly changes. You don't make announcements, you don't force your way in, you don't push to change anything, yet your presence becomes a soft power that shifts the shape of their inner world. Most people never notice when this happens. They believe emotional impact must be dramatic, loud, or openly admitted. But the truth is much more gentle. The deepest changes often begin silently under the surface, where neither of you fully realizes what has been awakened. This is especially true for men. Men carry their emotions in different ways, not because they feel less, but because they've been conditioned to treat their inner world like a locked room, a place where softness is risky, where tenderness is judged, where attachment is something to control rather than experience. They grow up believing that strength means holding everything inside, that appearing calm matters more than forming deep connections, that the world respects the man who never lets himself be touched too deeply. But the human heart does not follow these rules. It responds to realness, not masks. It leans toward honesty, not performance. And when a man meets a woman who stirs something true inside him, the change is impossible to ignore. Even if he tries to bury it, what makes this shift so rare is how quietly it passes through his defenses. It is not caused by pressure. It is not pulled by need. It is not shaped by manipulation. It happens simply because you carry a certain energy into his life, a presence that speaks to the silent, unspoken parts of him. Maybe it's the way you listen to him. Maybe it's the warmth in your voice, the calm steadiness of your energy, the sharpness of your thoughts, or a gentle softness you don't even know you carry. Maybe it's just that you see him, not the role, not the show, not the image he uses to survive, but the real human being underneath. Whatever it is, it touches him in ways he never expected, and suddenly, without planning it, you become important to him. He won't say it out loud. He may not even understand it at first, but his behavior begins to shift almost against his will, showing more truth than his words ever could. His eyes rest on you longer than he intends. His tone becomes softer without effort. His instincts sharpen. He becomes more aware of your presence, more sensitive to your moods, more protective of your calm. These are not planned actions. They are natural signs of emotional connection, evidence that something inside him has opened. What makes this opening so powerful is that it often comes with confusion, hesitation, and quiet fear. For a man who has spent years, maybe even decades, keeping his emotions under control, the realization that someone has reached his heart without him noticing feels unsettling. But this discomfort is not weakness, it is the start of growth, because the moment a man feels something he cannot explain, he is pushed to face parts of himself he usually avoids, his longing, his tenderness, his need for closeness, and the silent hope that someone might truly see him. You may not notice any of this from the outside. You may think he is distant, distracted, guarded, or simply difficult to understand. But beneath that surface, there is a quiet pull drawing him toward you, a pull he tries to hide with logic, self-discipline, or silence. Still, it appears through fragile, rare signs. These signs are not loud. They are not dramatic. They are not grand acts meant to impress. They come from the place where honesty lives, his instinct, his reactions, his unfiltered moments. They reflect truths he has not yet spoken, feelings he has not yet processed, connections he has not yet admitted, even to himself. This message is about those signs, the quiet signals that show you have reached a part of him he thought no one could touch. Signs that reveal you have shaped him emotionally without trying to. Signs that display the depth of your influence, even if he never speaks it. Understanding these signals is not about claiming his heart or assuming control over his feelings. It is about seeing the emotional truth beneath his behavior. Because a man may deny what he feels, he may avoid it, He may even run from it, but he cannot hide how his heart reacts to someone who touches him deeply. So if you have ever wondered whether you have left a mark on a man's soul without trying, without pushing, without even realizing, these rare signs will give you the answer. A man's heart reveals itself not through bold declarations, but through the quiet tremors you create inside him. This truth becomes clear the moment you realize how deeply a gentle presence can reshape his emotional world. Most men do not speak what they feel. They show it through unguarded changes in their energy, their focus, and their natural reactions. When you touch a man's heart without knowing it, the first sign is not words. It is the shift in the air around him. It is the way his inner world begins to adjust itself around you. You become a silent force in his life, pulling his attention, softening his edges, and sliding past the walls he never meant anyone to see. He won't announce this change because to him it is not fully conscious. It happens quietly in the background of his thoughts, like a song he didn't notice at first but suddenly can't stop hearing. Picture a man moving through life with emotional armor formed over years of hurt, pressure, expectations, and quiet struggles. He has built himself around the belief that feelings must be managed, hidden, or explained away. But when someone touches his heart, she doesn't ask permission to enter that guarded place. She simply exists in a way that connects to the parts of him he has kept buried. Your presence unsettles his emotional balance, not because of intensity, but because of a truthfulness that bypasses every defense he has built. He finds himself thinking differently when you're near, speaking differently with you, looking at you with a softness he never practiced. This softness is the first quiet crack, the silent proof that something real is growing inside him. He begins to notice things he usually would ignore. He catches small changes in your expressions, listens more carefully to your words, remembers tiny details you forgot you ever shared. This is not because he is trying to win you or impress you. It is because he has unknowingly placed you in a place of emotional importance. You have become part of his inner world, and he responds to you with a depth he does not show to others. The change is gentle but strong. Even if he tries to stay calm on the outside, something in the way he looks at you exposes a softness he never meant to show. His eyes stay a second longer, as if trying to understand the feeling you awaken in him. His voice lowers, not on purpose, but because the tension inside him melts in your presence. These are the quiet tremors that prove his heart has been moved. What makes this sign so rare is that it appears before he has clearly accepted his feelings. He does not yet understand why he values your presence, why your laughter stays in his mind, why your sadness disturbs his peace, or why your thoughts influence his choices. He only knows that something about you feels important. This importance grows silently, shaping his actions in ways he does not yet recognize, changing the way he moves through his world without him ever planning for it. He becomes more patient, more reflective, more emotionally aware. He adjusts the way he stands when you enter a room, not because he feels insecure, but because something inside him wants you to see him at his best. Your presence stretches the emotional range he usually keeps limited. It pulls him out of routine thinking and into genuine awareness. With time, these quiet changes begin to build. He finds himself wanting to talk to you more often, drawn to the comfort of your presence without clearly knowing why. You slowly become a place of emotional balance for him, a space where he feels steady and understood, even if he cannot put that feeling into words. When something in his day goes wrong, your reaction is the first thing that comes to his mind. When something good happens, you are the first person he wants to tell. This isn't driven by fantasy or imagination. It is emotional imprinting. You've reached a part of him that aches for real connection, yet rarely feels safe enough to chase it. The quiet tremors deepen when he starts behaving behaving differently for reasons he cannot logically explain. He becomes gently protective of you, more mindful, more present in his actions. He begins to anticipate what you might need, respects your personal space, and listens not only to what you say, but to what you leave unsaid. These changes are not planned, which makes them more powerful. They come from the heart, not from thinking. Even when he tries to create distance, the part of him that you touched resists in silence. He may pull back because of fear, confusion, or emotional uncertainty, yet his actions still show a loyalty, a tenderness, or a care that he cannot fully hide. In time, he understands that you have reached a place that no one else has reached before. You became important not because you tried to be, but because something in you spoke to something deep inside him. This is why the first sign, the quiet tremors in his emotional world, carries so much meaning. It shows the connection grew naturally, without force or pressure, built from authenticity instead of performance. You didn't push your way into his heart. You awakened a part of it that he had forgotten even existed. That is the rarest kind of influence. When a man feels something real, his behavior becomes a mirror he never meant to turn toward the world. And this truth becomes most clear in the way he listens. Listening is not just the act of hearing sound, it is the act of giving importance. Most people listen in a shallow way, catching pieces of meaning while waiting for their own chance to speak. But when a man has been emotionally moved by someone without fully understanding it, listening becomes something else entirely, something deeper, something instinctive. He shifts from simply hearing your words to absorbing your presence. Your voice becomes an emotional signal to him, something his mind notices even when he tries to remain distant or detached. This shift is quiet, but it is completely sincere. You might be talking about something small, a simple moment from your day, a minor problem, a passing worry, and he responds with a level of attention that feels different from how he reacts to others. He remembers details you hardly emphasized. He recalls dates, preferences, stories, and emotional tones with a precision that surprises even him. He finds himself replaying parts of your talks in his mind, not because he is obsessed, but because your words stay with a weight that he does not give to anyone else. It is as if your voice has carved out a deliberate place inside his awareness, a space he never meant to create. He listens with a type of seriousness that does not announce itself, it simply shows itself. You can see it in the way he pauses before answering, not to craft a perfect response, but because he truly wants to understand you. When you speak, he gives you his full focus, even during moments when he feels overwhelmed or distracted. He might look at you in a way that suggests he is reading the emotion hidden under your words. This is not an act. It is not an effort to impress you. It is an invisible change in his internal priorities. Something inside him recognizes that what you say matters, not only to the conversation, but to him personally. This depth of listening creates emotional risk for him. It pushes him to face the reality that you hold a certain influence over him, a soft power that slips past the mental distance he usually uses to stay in control. He may not want to admit this even to himself. He might try to explain it away by telling himself he is just being respectful or polite. But that explanation falls apart when he realizes he does not listen to others in the same way. He does not notice their tone shifts. He does not remember their details. He does not ask follow-up questions days later. He does not carry the emotional weight of their words long after the conversation has ended. But with you, he does. This change reshapes how he interacts with you. He becomes more patient, even in situations where patience does not come naturally to him. He allows you space to express yourself without interrupting or steering the conversation back to himself. And if you are upset, confused, or emotionally open, his listening sharpens even more. It becomes almost protective. He wants to understand not only the situation, but how that situation affects you. He focuses on the parts of your story where your voice softens, where your breathing changes, where your silence says more than words ever could. This is the type of listening that belongs to someone who feels connected in a way he has not yet admitted. Over time, this focused listening begins to shape the way he thinks about you. Your words echo in his choices. He considers your opinions even when you are not there. He thinks about how you would see his decisions and how his actions might affect you emotionally. He slowly blends your perspective into his own way of thinking, not because you asked him to, but because he values your insight on a natural, instinctive level. You become a quiet voice of guidance in his mind, a compass that directs him gently, silently, powerfully. This emotional blending often creates confusion for him. At times he may pull away, unsure why your feelings matter so deeply to him. He may become distant or reserved, not because his feelings have disappeared, but because he realizes he is experiencing something that cannot be easily controlled. Still, even during these moments of distance, his listening does not fade. Distance may change his behavior, but it cannot remove the emotional mark you have already left. The part of him that listens to you with depth, the part that absorbs your words and carries them quietly inside, that part stays open. Listening becomes the doorway through which he unconsciously reveals his attachment. Words can be controlled, actions can be practiced, but the mind's natural instinct to listen deeply cannot be faked. It is the purest sign of emotional connection. When you speak, he is not just receiving information, he is receiving you, and that is the rare sign. He becomes careful not to pressure you, not to pull you beyond what feels safe, not to force closeness before you're ready. This respect does not come from fear of losing you. It comes from an inner instinct to protect the connection rather than threaten it. He becomes aware that your trust is something fragile, something valuable, and something he does not want to damage through carelessness or ego. He treats your emotional space like sacred ground, stepping lightly, speaking thoughtfully, and acting with quiet restraint. This kind of respect is rare because it doesn't come from rules or advice. It comes from emotional attachment that has already taken root in his heart, even if he hasn't spoken its name. He may start checking in on you without making it obvious. A simple message to see how you are feeling. A quiet question about whether you arrived home safely. A subtle shift in how he reacts when you're tired, overwhelmed, or distant. He doesn't make a spectacle out of caring. He simply becomes involved in the quiet background of your life, watching, noticing, protecting. These behaviors aren't loud declarations. They are soft habits that form naturally when someone becomes important. He may not fully understand why he behaves this way. He may explain it away to himself as being thoughtful or decent, but deep down it comes from the heart responding before the mind has caught up. When a man feels touched by someone on a level he cannot explain, his sense of time around her changes. He becomes more present. He slows down. The rushing energy he carries into the world softens in your presence. He becomes more still, more grounded, more focused. It is as if your presence gives him permission to rest parts of himself that are always alert, always guarded, always braced. This relaxation is not weakness, it is trust forming quietly. He feels safe enough with you to let his guard drop just enough to breathe. He may not say this, he may not even recognize it consciously, but his body language, his energy, his emotional rhythm adjusts itself around you. He starts to notice when you are absent, not dramatically, not desperately, but quietly. The space you filled in his emotional world does not disappear when you are not around. He feels the difference. Conversations feel flatter, moments feel duller, laughter feels less warm. It's not that he cannot function without you. It's that his emotional world now recognizes what it feels like to be touched by something real. And once that awareness exists, it cannot be erased. He cannot go back to not noticing. He cannot return to the version of himself that was completely unaware of what his heart was capable of feeling. This absence does not turn into obsession. It turns into reflection. He thinks of you quietly, without urgency. He remembers your expressions, the tone of your voice, the way you looked when you were thoughtful or amused or tired. These memories do not overwhelm him. They steady him. They live in the background of his mind like a soft echo. And slowly he begins to understand the impact you've had. Not in words, not in labels, but in feeling. He realizes that you changed the emotional temperature of his inner world. Another rare sign emerges in the way he handles conflict with you. When a man is touched emotionally, he cannot treat disagreement casually. He cannot dismiss tension. He cannot ignore misunderstandings the way he might with others. He cares about repairing the emotional space between you. He wants harmony, not because he fears losing you, but because distance feels wrong once the heart has been opened. He becomes more willing to explain himself, to listen, to adjust, to understand. He doesn't see conflict as something to win. He sees it as something to soften, something to work through, something to heal. If he hurts you, even unintentionally, it stays with him longer than he will admit. He thinks about it in private. He replays moments. He analyzes his tone, his wording, his timing. He feels the emotional weight of his actions, not as shame, but as responsibility. This is not something he experiences lightly with others. It only appears when emotional attachment has already taken root. He may never say all of this aloud, but his behavior will show it through his effort to reconnect, to restore emotional safety, to bring things back into balance. Over time, his identity begins to shift subtly around you. He does not become someone else. He becomes more of himself, more honest, more open, more deliberate. He no longer performs. He no longer hides behind surface-level reactions. He allows his real thoughts, real feelings, and real fears to show in small, gradual ways. This is not dramatic vulnerability, it is quiet authenticity. He starts revealing personal memories, private opinions, unpolished thoughts. These are not strategic disclosures. They are instinctive offerings of trust, pieces of himself that he only gives where he feels emotionally safe. A man who has been touched without realizing it does not fake depth. He does not force closeness. He simply becomes real in ways he cannot reverse. The walls he built remain standing, but they develop cracks. Light passes through. Truth slips out. And without speaking it, he shows you that you have entered a territory within him that few ever reach. This transformation does not make him perfect. It does not make him fearless. It makes him human in a way he has kept buried. He becomes more careful with how he handles your emotions, more aware of how his silence might affect you, more thoughtful about how his presence or absence shapes your emotional world. He learns to become emotionally present, not because you asked him to, but because he feels pulled to meet you where you are. Eventually, the realization forms inside him, not as a sentence, not as a confession, but as a quiet truth he can no longer ignore. You matter deeply, powerfully, and no matter how hard he tries to act unaffected, neutral, or distant, his heart has already responded. It has already chosen to open. It has already shifted. And perhaps the most powerful sign of all is not in what he says, or even what he does, but in what he cannot fake. The way he goes quiet when you speak with emotion, the way his jaw tightens when someone disrespects you, the way his eyes soften when you appear tired, the way his body leans slightly toward you even when he tries to stay still. These are not learned behaviors, these are instincts, and instincts never lie. When a man has been touched deeply without meaning to, his heart leaves traces of itself in everything he does around you, in his tone, in his timing, in his silence, in his restraint, in his care. His heart speaks long before his mouth ever does, the one he cannot hide, the one he never planned to show. The one that reveals his heart has already chosen to crack open. When a man feels something real, something surprising, something that reaches deeper than he knows how to explain, his entire sense of identity quietly shifts around that feeling. This is not a conscious choice. It is not a role he practices. It is an automatic shift, the kind that happens when someone awakens a side of him he never knew was asleep. Your presence becomes a trigger, a silent force that pulls buried emotions out and forces him to face parts of himself he has avoided for a long time. It is one thing for a man to feel interested in someone. It is completely different when a woman touches something sacred inside him. That difference shows most clearly in the sudden awareness he develops about his own behavior. Men often move through life on autopilot, especially with their emotions. They learn to control their reactions, manage their vulnerability, and hide their inner world behind a structured outer mask. But when someone touches his heart without trying to, that structure begins to crack. back, he becomes aware of himself in a way he never was before, as if he is watching his own actions through your eyes.